The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Raina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative-focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Raina Lombardi.
Welcome, creatives. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. I'm very excited to introduce my next guest today. His name is David Axler. He is the Vice President of Strategy and Business Development with Wave Accounting. And I'm really excited to have you, David. Thanks so much for making the time.
No, great to be here and get a chance to chat today.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a VP of Strategy and Business Development at Wave, which is a small business financial management platform. And my journey to Wave actually really starts a while back. I was planning on being a lawyer, and I wanted to do international law. So I decided before going to law school, before start signing up, I would work internationally. And I happened to be working in a country that was going through some big political turmoil, Kenya, and their elections went really poorly. And I was expecting international lawyers to do all this amazing work, and that didn't quite happen. What happened was small businesses made some amazing innovations, primarily a product called M-Pesa, which was a phone company that allowed you to trade phone credit from phone to phone. And I saw the power of technology being able to unlock business and innovation. I got on a payphone in Nairobi in the middle of the night, canceled my law school acceptance, and decided that eventually I was going to go into helping businesses innovate. And through a number of different roles and series, I was a management consultant at Deloitte for quite a while before making my way into technology and SaaS. And I was really fortunate enough to find an opportunity at Wave that was supporting small business owners all over the world in allowing them to really work, on their business, as opposed to having to necessarily get the nitty gritty of things like accounting and payroll and invoicing. So it was really just an amazing opportunity. And this conversation hits really close to home because I happen to be married to a therapist who's the daughter of two therapists, and my brother is in a similar boat. So therapy and small business management are basically the two most prevalent topics in my house, probably now more so than ever because the office is the house. So
Oh my gosh.
the line between kind of small business and helping therapies and different clinics manage their small business, it's very blurred in this house. So I'm really happy to join today and chat.
Thank you so much. It's like a very difficult topic for a lot of therapists to talk about, kind of the money aspect of things. It's not part of our training. And it's something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. So instead of actually taking the time and looking at the numbers and breaking everything down, it's like, well, how much is in the bank account? And we'll just go from there. And that can get us into trouble. Is there anything that you could speak to in terms of a different way of thinking about accounting, a different way of thinking about the money piece of business that makes it maybe less intimidating and more approachable?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen for many folks who are either just starting their practice or maybe changing the way the model of their practice is they're often coming from where they've trained trains them on everything else but running a practice. And that might be
Mhm.
because you're starting in a center, or you're starting in a hospital, or you're starting in a school. And administration in those places is very different than running your own business. So you're starting with this, what seems like a very intimidating piece, on top of a job and a vocation that is in itself quite intense. So I can understand the initial challenge and intimidation. That said, we've come such a far way from even the last 5 or 10 years in terms of accessibility for any small business owner, and that certainly applies to those that are running practices. In that there are tools and services available to you that should make that entry into it so much easier. And
Mhm.
I think there's a number of things to look for in an accounting platform and a business management platform. The first is that we're lucky that there are now many more tools that are actually built for the business owner. I think if you go
Yeah,
back 5, 10, and then certainly before that, most financial management tools were actually built for the accountant. And
I
so,
totally agree with that. I
and
cried. I spent hours crying when I first started using an older platform many years ago, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I just went back to Excel spreadsheet.
yeah, and that was very much the nature of the industry. Was focused on the buyer, and the buyer was generally the accountant. And there's some, not nefarious reasons for it, but there's some reasons that those are built to be complex, and the flexibility that an accountant needs and the visibility into the business is different than what a small business owner needs. So the first is that there are tools now that are custom built for the small business owner. And that means that they're built to have a much easier setup. They're almost
Mhm.
built like a consumer app. Like you're used to seeing like a flow and accessibility and some of the things that you're used to, as opposed to getting in there and seeing it look like a Wall Street Bloomberg terminal of a mosaic of hieroglyphics that you don't understand. And so that's, I think, a really great thing. And it's very much the ethos of Wave, that this is built for a small business owner who's probably coming from a shoebox of receipts and an Excel spreadsheet,
That's
not.
me.
Yeah. So that really is kind of the starting point for a company like ours in terms of how we're building for. We know that the expertise for our users and for our customers is actually in their skill set. It's in their knowledge base of what they actually do. And so we've had to build a suite of products that really fits someone who understands their own business, but not the mechanics of, say, accounting or payroll or invoicing. And so I'd say in any tool that you're looking for in terms of managing your business, you should be able to find that accessibility that will bring down that intimidation factor completely. And if you
Mhm.
don't get that in the first few minutes, you're probably looking at something that was built for a financial professional or an accountant. And those are good tools, but they're not for you. So I think you should know that there are options available to you
Mhm.
that will allow you to get the visibility into your business. What's my cash flow looking like? Who's paid me? What's owed versus actually paid, right? Just because I've sent an invoice doesn't mean the cash has come in. And so being able to have a platform that gives you really good visibility into that is just absolutely critical. And it's available. So I think it should
Yes.
initially just bring some of that heart rate down of, I've started a practice, or I have a practice and I need to digitize it.
Right.
Am I completely out of luck? Well, no, I think that you'd find some really great options available now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really appreciate is having something where there are multiple aspects that are all built into one framework. So I'm not going from one place to another to find all the information that I need, which was kind of the old way of doing things. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And that's, with Wave, that's how we built the platform, is that we recognize that you want a single source of truth and you don't want to be jumping around to too many platforms. Now you're going to have tools that are very much specific just to your practice, and we don't cover that. But when it comes to your invoices, your accounting, your payroll, the financial management of your business, and being able to get a clear picture should be in one place.
Yeah.
And the way that we're able to do that is we digitize and automate really the whole experience. So rather than manually doing your books, you just connect your bank account, and that really manages a lot of the challenge or the stress for most small business owners. And I think you'd find that for many of the leading players in the space, but us
Sure.
primarily.
Yeah, I know there are definitely, multiple options out there for people. They're looking into it. Why do you think having an application or platform is beneficial to the business owner? Like, in what ways can they utilize the system to their advantage?
Yeah, I think there's really three things that all the sub benefits fall under. So this is my consultant coming out. Everything has like a 3-point plan, but there's really three things, and probably more so for practitioners. I'd say the first one is important, and that's time. So the atomic unit of value for a therapist, in most cases, is time. It's either the billable hour or the hour spent on the business. So anything that's going to reduce the administrative overhead is time that you could be spending either on your business or your clients or your patients or yourself, right? Like
Yourself. Yeah,
you really need the time to process and digest that. So if you just think about kind of old world, new world of an accounting platform, and in the old world, I'm thinking kind of about my in-laws, perhaps maybe 5 or 10 years ago, where they go through a session and then they now have the written invoice. You've got, first of all, that moment of awkwardness of, that was a great session, will you please pay the invoice? It's just not a great experience from the first place. Then who actually paid me? Have they paid me for all the right sessions? Okay, yes, they have. Do I have it marked in the right account? And have I associated the right tax for preparation so that when tax time comes? Now you do that by the number of clients you see in a day or in a week, and all of a sudden that's a couple of sessions that have been taken away, or the walk that you needed to decompress at the end of the day,
oh, for
or
sure.
thinking about, or being able to join a community of practice and talk to other practitioners. So time, I think, is probably the most important. That there are just tasks that can be automated and digitized, that
Mhm.
the end result is you now have more time. The second is just visibility. And so, if time is one, then visibility is probably 1A, where the mental real estate that not knowing where you actually stand, like how much that takes up, and the stress is really
Yeah.
critical. And I think, you and your listeners will know, I think one of the myths about practices is there's not a lot of operational overhead. And I know that's not true. There are things like rent, there are things like tools, there's the colleges or communities you belong to, there's all the expenses that you have. Not having a good sense of truly where you are just adds to that burden of uncomfortability, feeling like you need to have many different people help you, or even embarrassed that I'm not even ready to have people help me because my house isn't in order. Um,
Yes.
so having a source of truth that you can trust and depend on, and it's organized, especially when it's done automatically for you, just gives you the visibility and confidence you need to do so many different things, aside from just reducing stress in the first place. And then the third is really about cash flow.
Florida Art Therapy Services is a proud sponsor of the TCP podcast. They offer art therapy for individuals and groups, as well as qualified supervision services and high-quality, experiential-driven continuing education for art therapists, mental health counselors, and clinical social workers. Visit www.floridaarttherapyservices.com for more information. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the Creative Psychotherapist podcast, we have copper, silver, and gold options. So visit www.creativeclinicianscorner.com/podcast for more information.
So cash flow is the lifeblood of most, or really all, small businesses. And knowing your inflow versus outflow of money is really, really critical for you to know what I can, should, or ought to be doing in my business. And in a transactional business where, unlike, you don't have one or two big products that you sell, you see
Right.
many patients or clients. So you actually have many inflows in a given month. Um, and so being able to track that and truly assess where you are helps you make good decisions for your business. It helps you make good decisions for your life. It also makes good decisions for your time. So
Yeah.
knowing where you're at in a given month can either tell you like, hey, actually I'm well ahead, or actually, that week I took off for training, if I want to do this thing, I probably do need to add a couple sessions or whatnot. So the cash flow is really key there. So there's many other probably sub benefits, but they've generally fall under one of those three.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with them, and in that order. It's wild. You don't realize how much time goes into the other pieces. Most of us have been working in some community job or education setting, what have you, where the majority of our time goes into that face-to-face direct client contact. And then we transition into private practice, we replicate that, and we're like, well, wait, that was my 40 hours. And I still have all of this other work that I need
Yeah,
to do on the administrative end. And it does take time. And again, I think it comes down to fluency. We're really fluent at being able to work with the clients and develop rapport and do skilled interventions, but we may not be super fluent when it comes to managing a budget and itemizing everything. And that, when you're learning something new, it takes a lot more time. It takes emotional energy and like the academic energy too, because it's kind of twofold, right? There's that fear of, okay, I'm dealing with the money, which for a lot of people brings up fear. Um,
totally.
right? And then there's the, oh my gosh, I'm trying to do something and translate a language I don't completely understand. And then that's hard. So it takes a lot longer. I know for me, when I first started, I spent a lot of hours every week just going through all the transactions and figuring out that process. It over time, it took less time, but initially it was a huge parcel of my week was dedicated just to figuring out the finances of this whole small business process.
Yeah,
And anything that you can do to shave off some of that time and make it more easy for yourself, I think the better.
absolutely. I mean, that's really the whole. It's kind of the driving force between, like, for our company, is that feeling of you got this, and you
Mhm.
got this, and you're not going to have it, all at once, but you can get that feeling of you got this pretty quickly through that visibility, and through feeling like your time is being better spent, because you're not searching for what should I even be doing right now, as opposed to starting to make decisions about your business. And not to say you're not going to have a lot of things on your plate. I've seen I've seen what a therapist we can look like, but if we can, through our platform, mean that less of it is spent on, which transaction should go where, or, is my payroll compliant in this state. That's something that we want to be
Yeah.
able to help with. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for people just starting out, they might not have payroll, but as they grow and their business starts to thrive, they might add on people. And then that's a whole nother thing. If you've never done that before, it can feel really complicated and overwhelming. Um, and it's
A-
helpful to have help.
Absolutely. And I think one of the misnomers about payroll is that you don't have a payroll need until you have a full-time employee. And actually what we
Mm,
found with many practices is that that's not the case. So um, there's actually tax benefits for certain types of businesses to pay yourself as an employee,
yeah,
as opposed to being taking a dividend or just kind of treating it as a bank account or whatnot. And how you draw from your business, there's different ways, and it's certainly not for every business. But once you hit a certain threshold of revenue, the tax benefits of paying yourself as an employee, and without getting too granular into the legalese, you can become an S corporation in the US, and actually you now have a payroll need. And
right.
so being able to in the same platform as your accounting, have it right there, have it automated. You're not doing calculations of, well, is my state unemployment going to be calculated and what did I pay myself last time? Like, no, you know how many hours you did, or what your salary should be, a reasonable salary, and you should pay that, and let the platform take care of the rest, so that you're compliant with the IRS, you're maximizing your tax benefit, as well as many businesses are ready for a contractor before they're ready for a full-time employee. So just because you haven't hired a
Absolutely.
full-time employee, you may be paying a vendor or an individual contractor to do some work. And once you paid them a certain amount of money, there's a tax requirement of a 1099 form, and that's essentially a payroll need too. And so making sure that, okay, it's there, I'm clear on it, it's mapped directly to my accounting, I've got full visibility, I've got any of my tax forms. Whoa, like that's something like, 5 or 10 years ago, we're talking about a week worth of effort just to get this set up. And if we can take this to, you know, 10 minutes and full visibility with everything else, then that's added time where really talented practitioners can be applying their work in the right places, as opposed to struggling with, first, before even the fear, just the task of how do you manage payroll. So the payroll side mapped to accounting is absolutely critical.
Thank you so much for kind of adding that, because I was thinking from the mindset of like, well, most people are starting off by themselves, so they don't have it. But you made some really great points about all of the other things that come along with it. And certainly if you've never you know, created a 1099 before, that's something like, well, how do you know how to do that? Where do you find the information on how to do that? So having that integrated into the one thing that you're using is incredibly helpful. I didn't even know that that was part of the program. I've been using Wave for a number of years now. At first, I started using something else, which was awful. And I think it was probably what you were explaining, definitely designed for an accountant who had that stuff in mind. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out and just racking myself into these like anxiety, panic attack type states, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this. What's wrong with me? Crying. I was bad, and like calling the help support line and being on the phone with them for hours trying to figure out how to do stuff, until finally I just abandoned it and went back to Excel. And then another therapist had introduced me to Wave and said, you should check this out. And so I've been using it, but I don't, after talking to you today, I know I definitely haven't been using it to its full suite of, um, options and capacity. So I'm going to have to check into that, how to do set up the 1099s through there.
Absolutely. And it's built for you to be able to do it yourself um, without anyone driving that for you. But we have support fully built in. So we have live chat and a really robust help center for you to go through, and also just determine, like, does this apply to me? If you're unsure as to whether it applies, you'll be able to find that. And for any practitioner, I'd encourage them to ask the questions about payroll. The second is looking at some of the invoice management that Wave has. So Your accounting is absolutely critical. Your cash flow, being able to have visibility into the business. One of the challenges that any transactional businesses have, this is not just therapists, but if you think about trainers and life coaches and consultants, is
Mm-hmm.
they have a multitude of um, invoices that they're sending out. And being able to manage the status of what's been sent, what's been paid, building in reminders for customers, almost turning Wave into your collections program.
Yeah.
That moment after any service, be it therapy, be it a consulting session, be it a personal training session, you want it to end where the client is in the best headspace thinking about the service they just received, as opposed to, okay, now I'm looking at the bill. That you just, from a business standpoint, you don't want to have that if you can avoid it. So having an automated system whereby after the session, or in some cases, some businesses will require payment up front, but it's the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can decouple the moment of payment from the moment where you're
Right.
going through a service, I just think you find real benefit for both the customer and for the practitioner, because now both those things are handled well and appropriately, but you have the full visibility as to what's going on. So that, accounting, invoicing, and payroll are three areas that may not apply equally or at all to some businesses, but are worth an understanding of. If this were to be 2, 5, or 10 times better for my business, what would that mean
Mm-hmm.
for me? And I think that there's just a lot to gain when time is so critical, visibility is so critical, and cash flow is so critical. Each one of those things has the opportunity to make some gains for your practice or for your business. If you even dabble in almost all of Wave is free anyway, so the financial downside or risk is almost nothing.
That is true. So if you missed it, you said it's free. For the most part. I mean, there are some features that, you have to pay for, but it certainly is worth it. Like they have, and I know I've been using it and really appreciate it, is like you can attach Stripe to the invoice so that people can pay online immediately, and it immediately goes into your bank account through Stripe. You just have to connect that, but that's a really great feature. The other feature I love is I can look at the end of the year for each customer that I have in there, and I can do a report, and I can look at the total amount of revenue that's come in on that one customer. And I use it specifically for like contractual work, where my practice contracts with other agencies in the community or another paying source, right? Where I have like the insurance company set up a little bit differently. But for these other transactions, which doesn't work in the EHR like that, this is really helpful. And I can look at each one of those contracts and see like, okay, like here's where we are, and do those match up with the 1099 that they're sending me, because you want to match those up too at
Exactly.
the end of the year.
Reconciliation is so key in small businesses, like making sure that the different pieces of data or information that are going on in your business actually map. And so whether that's enabling payments so that your clients can pay you directly by a credit card, mapping directly to your accounting, or directing directly to your reports, or to your example, customer management, being able to have clear visibility in terms of customers A through Z, who actually contributed or paid the most, who actually owes the most, when's the
Mhm.
last time I actually sent them a reminder. Just having that control is so key, and you start to be able to make some decisions around like, what should the next step in my business look like, or who are the types of clients that really are the ones that I should be seeing or can be seeing, who are the ones that are more recurring versus the ones that are more one-off. And
Mhm.
it becomes not just a kind of general ledger, which is I think what most people think of accounting as, like, the books. It actually becomes a business tool for you to have a real sense of, okay, I can look at this month versus the same month last year. I can look at this group of customers versus that group of customers. And it starts to give you a real sense of the story. I think probably no different from as you're going through with, clients and patients. It's, what's the story? How do you make sense of it? How do you make sense of it to also change behavior going forward? See, we're not so different, you and I, right? It's
No.
like, it's how do we take with tools that we have available, increase your understanding of your current and past situation to make great decisions going forward. And I don't know whether I'm talking about therapy or financial management right now, but they're basically one and the same.
Right. But it's about the mindset, right? And the framework or the construct that we have
Totally.
around that process. But you really made it accessible to therapists in the way that you described it, because it is a parallel process. And if we can overcome our fear around dealing with the financial aspect of things, then we can really step into it and utilize that information to help guide our decision making in building our practice, or revising how we're doing it so that we can be more effective and
Totally.
manage our time better. What's a better return on our investment of time and energy financially, and all those things. So
And I think in that, one of the other things to consider is being able to have tools available to you in a kind of self-serve model doesn't mean you're restricted to now doing everything alone. In fact, having your business organized better and transparently actually increases your ability to collaborate. So one of the barriers to collaboration, be it with another business partner, be it with a financial professional, is I don't know how to open up my business and some of the data to them in a way that would be accessible to them or make sense to them, or not defy the privacy of my practice. And obviously within therapy, that's a very real concern. And so
mhm.
with Wave, you can collaborate in a number of ways that restrict permissions or views. You can export reports. So if say you're
Mhm.
applying for a loan, or you want to start working with a different type of financial professional, or you're going through insurance, you don't want to bring, here's everything about my business and let's make sense of it together. But you know the information you want to bring, and it's digitized, it's clean, it looks good, and you now have the both the confidence to approach that collaboration or whatever the nature of it is, and you're going to get a higher quality consultation, expertise, or partnership with that other side, because they can make sense of it as well. So it's this kind of ironic thing where being able to do things better yourself by having that
Mhm.
clarity actually allows you to work with other people even better.
And it reduces your expense. Like, a lot
Totally.
of people don't consider it. Maybe they saw like a parent, or something on television where people just drop off all of the paperwork to the accountant, and then the accountant has to sort through all that. That costs a ton of money, because now you're going to have to pay their hourly fee for them to sort that out, when you can be doing it digitally
Totally.
throughout your entire process, and then just send them over the forms or the spreadsheets of all of the information, and then they just have to interpret that information to do your taxes according to how they need to be done. It's a time
Yeah,
saver for them, and it
totally.
costs less money for you.
And it allows them to that time, like time is finite, right? Like if they spend those 100 hours, it's not like, well, I have infinite amount of time to do the other thing. That's time that's been taken away from looking at your current situation and being able to figure out, how do we optimize for your business? If I've spent, okay, I know that Reina has 120 hours worth of work that I'm going to assign to her business. If I just spent the first 100 just making sense of it, I only have 20 hours left to really figure out what's the best tax position for it. Should she be paying herself as an S corp? Like, is she ready for that? Does she have different areas where we can manage some of the business expenses a different way? Is her office and some of the assets depreciating in a way that may be advantageous for the business? Well, I just spend all this time just trying to get things clean.
Hmm.
And so, this recurring theme of where you can save yourself time and have better visibility, it just ups the level of conversation or thought that's being applied toward the business by you or the folks that you're working with.
I totally agree. And my accountant thanks me for giving him the information in the way that I do, because I do that for my mileage. I do that like in a spreadsheet. Everything's in a spreadsheet and categorized and organized, and it makes it really easy. And then he is able to go through and say, here are the options. What do you want to do? Like, I found you can do it this way or you can do it this way. Here's the advantage of this. Here's the advantage of this over here. You know, you got to weigh out your pros and cons, but then that gives you the choice to be able to make those decisions. Like you're saying, there's more control,
Absolutely.
which is great. Yeah. So if people were looking at a software platform for their accounting, what would you say would be the essential things that should be in there to help them run their small business?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that you should be looking for is absolutely essential. The first is, are you going to be able to set this up and do it yourself? You're going to find that out really quickly. I think you know, describing your experiences of your past tools with something like Wave, it should be something that allows you to have fast setup with no training required to get set up.
Intuitive.
Intuitive with support options that are clearly available. And one thing that I think is worth noting, depending on your business structure, is, does this allow me to run multiple businesses if that's the case? So there's a lot of practitioners, a lot of small businesses that they don't only have one business. And if you're going to actually now have to do multiple business and you find out that software doesn't allow for that, you're going to do all this stuff and realize like, oh my God, this is a waste of time. So does it support multiple business? I think is key. The second is, it should be able to work for you and integrate with what you already use. So does it have bank and credit card connections so that I can automatically connect? Does it reconcile your incoming payments, right? Like you talked about being able to connect to Stripe, and Wave has its own payment rails as well. Absolutely key for just being able to do this on your own. Does it give you a handle on your business? So this is different than the tool that is built just for the accountant. So do you have a dashboard that tells you about your business, about your cash flow, and about your customers? And this is starting to go from that level one of just, I have a general ledger. I'm going to assume that any accounting software is going to have a general ledger. So I don't even consider that in the essentials. Like it's not even accounting software if it doesn't allow to have your books, but there's kind of that level up of, do I have the clarity of what's going on in a way that is understandable to me? The visuals matter. The user experiences matter. The malleability and flexibility of a platform. Is it easy for me to find what I'm looking for? If you're finding that I can't find, you know, this transaction or this customer in one or two clicks, then you know you really should be questioning if that tool is really built for the small business owner and for you. So it should you know really give you a handle on your business, whether it's the dashboards or the income and expense tracking. So money in, money out, to which customers, in which time frame is key. And then lastly, does it work for your business processes? So every business is a little different. And some of the questions that I would be asking is, does it allow me to accept payments in the modes that I need for running my business? So Wave, for instance, is not really built for retail. We're not a point of sale solution. So that would be something that you'd want to look. We integrate with them, but that's not really our core focus. We're more kind of service-based, invoice-based businesses. So you're going to want to look for that. If you're taking money in multiple currencies, so Wave allows for that, and that's become particularly important in kind of this. I don't know if we're in post-pandemic or what we're in now, but many businesses, as they've moved digital, the geographic constraint has changed. So they're no longer constrained to just see clients in their neighborhood or in their city even. And now they're getting referrals from cousins, aunts, uncles of their clients who happen to live in Canada or overseas, and say, Raina is the best. You need to see her. And you don't even need to go to her office anymore because everything is digital. Well, do you have a system that's actually going to allow for you to take to manage different transactions or even just the currency? So I think that it's an example of recognizing, do your business process needs get met there, and it should be customizable to meet your business needs as well. And these are things like, you want your invoices to look like your invoices. You don't want them to look like you just downloaded a PDF and we're sending it out. That legitimacy, that feeling of this is yours. So I think in summary, it's just like, do you have the clarity? Can you set it up properly? Does it work with what you already have, kind of the tooling? And does it work with the business processes that are going to be key to your business? You should be able to find that out pretty quickly going along. And if you're not finding the answers as you get into it or through the support channels available, it's probably time to look elsewhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. I think you kind of covered all the key points. I know for me, like, this part has always been, it's been a learning curve and probably the most challenging aspect of going out on my own. Again, just because we're not trained for it, but having systems that make it fluid and easy really do ease the stress of being a small business owner and allow you to relax, because like, you can see everything that you're doing and you just have more control over it. Of course, you're anxious, you want to control the situation a little bit, and especially with your finances and making sure that your business is operating in a profit, right? That if we're not operating in a profit, then we're not going to have a business much longer.
Well, I think one of my favorite things is watching and hearing the journey that small businesses go through, from that moment of, oh man, what have I gotten myself into? Can I do this? Surely I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. To
Yep.
This is a little easier and less scary than I thought. To, okay, I feel like I got this. And then there's this feeling where I'm actually excited to go into my financial management software. Like, what did this day look like? What did this month look like? Oh my God, I can do this. It is the coolest thing to watch that journey of business owners go from something that seemed like inaccessible, a dream, a scary thing to consider, I can't go there, all the way to I get excited about talking about the things that were, business terms and accounting concepts. It's really wonderful. And I think it gives someone like me a real sense of purpose, in the same way that you and many of your listeners will have, that it's a job that is really easy to get up in the morning, because you know that the outcome of the job well done is helping someone do what they really should be doing. And it's wonderful seeing, especially in this field, being able to take control, get excited about that, make good decisions, spend time on the things that they really should be doing. It's really probably the best perk of the gig.
No, that's wonderful. I think there's lots of other industries where we forget that, people are doing that job to help others, right? Like,
Totally.
this is a perfect example of that. You guys help others help themselves and help others in the business. So yeah, thank you.
No problem. It's a real privilege.
If people wanted to learn more about Wave, where should they go to do that?
We are very online. That's the way I would describe us. So we are a digital first and essentially a digital only platform. So there's no sales reps, there's no sales team. Everything is to find on your own. So the first place to go is the website. So www.waveapps.com. You can sign up for free using your email or your Gmail or any other account. You can find us on Twitter at WaveHQ, so very on Twitter, as well as Instagram with the same handle.
Okay.
The website is an amazing resource, not just the product itself. Specifically during this time, we've put together unbelievably helpful resources on managing through some of the changes that have come through from the government with respect to COVID-19 relief options. We were talking about payroll earlier on. Payroll has basically been the center of relief options for the PPP program. So if you are wondering about your eligibility and how to do that, I would highly, highly encourage you to check the COVID-19 resource page within Wave, but really the whole site before you even use the product is an exceptional resource for any small business. And then sign up for free. Check it out. I'm on Twitter at RealAx, RealAx, and happy to chat with folks that have more questions as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today, David. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.